Hey, it's Joshua Vergara. What's going on, everybody? And I wanted to bring you guys a look at the LG V30 and its video recording capabilities. Now, we did just do a versus, Lon did, of the V30 versus the Galaxy Note 8 in terms of their camera performance and their camera capabilities, so you can make sure to check that out. The links will be in the description below. But I just wanted to give you sort of my experience using the LG V30 as a main camera while I was in Berlin for IFA and also in China about a week or so ago. Now, standard caveat, I do need to tell you guys real quick that the LG V30 that we're using right now is a pre-production unit. Some things might change when we get our final production units, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. But as I said, I just wanted to give you my experience and my thoughts as to why the LG V30 is one of the most fun cameras that I've used in recent memory. So a quick rundown of what kind of footage you might be seeing in this video. I did use it for a couple of trips, and I did use it mainly as a vlogging camera. So if you're looking at the LG V30 as a potential main vlogging rig, well, I do have a few tips that could probably get you started and to give you the best experience that you can get out of the V30. Alright, so this is the vlogging rig that you might see a lot of YouTubers use. However, I'm not using a regular camera on the top here. I got the Joby Pro clamp in order to securely fasten the LG V30 to the top of this GorillaPod. One of the reasons why I really love using this is because with the wide-angle camera, you won't be able to capture log footage. Instead, you'll be using the regular angle camera, so I want to get some distance between me and the camera so that I can still get my framing just right. And as long as you're keeping the camera basically in the right general area, you will be in the frame properly, and with that distance, you'll be able to put yourself in the middle without cutting off the top or bottom of your subject. Also, top tip, if you are going to be vlogging or using the LG V30 for a lot of footage, using the rear cameras, because let's be honest, the front-facing camera is just not all that up to par when it comes to quality, and of course you can't do log footage with the front-facing camera, go to manual video mode and the volume buttons become the button for triggering and also stopping the recording, kind of like this. But of course, if you do want to use the wide-angle camera, it's still going to get some pretty good color-accurate videos. And with that wide angle, you don't have to worry about not having your subject in the scene. You can even just hold the phone, hit record, and then turn it right around, and you'll pretty much get everything in the scene, even if your hand is a part of it. So let's talk about one of the features that we'll dive into more in our full review. This is the Cine video mode, where you get a flat profile to begin with because that is the log format profile, and then you have a bunch of different color filters that you can put onto the video so that you can record it using that color profile already. This is a little bit different from the usual filters you might see in plenty of other cameras or other applications, and they are very stylized so you can get a very particular look for your footage, and it's pretty nice to have. But it's really that wide angle, first off, that does a great job of just sort of making the footage that much more fun to watch. You are able to turn the phone around and then just get a full-on perspective, much like you would with a GoPro, because the wide angle view is a lot like an action camera, but it's just on a phone. And if you want another top tip, you can record in 4K video and just have a big micro SD card inside of the phone so you don't run out of space. And the reason why I say that is because you can record in 4K, and if you render out in 1080p, you will be able to crop into the 4K frame pretty easily if you didn't necessarily get the framing that you want. Now, a couple thoughts on point and zoom. There are a couple of shots here that I used for point and zoom, but I found the effect to be a little bit cheesy. It's kind of like those old kung fu movies where it zoomed into the actor's eyes, like a little bit too tight in also. But I get that it is a useful tool, especially if you have the phone stationary on something like a GorillaPod like I'm using right now. That way you're able to zoom into a particular part of the frame without having to move the phone itself as you're zooming. This camera is super fun to use. And if you're going to be using this phone for social media, for example, then just have the phone upright for different areas like Snapchat or IG stories, and it's going to import right in perfectly, and you can use the wide-angle camera on the main camera before importing that footage into whatever social media platform you choose. You might actually recognize some of these clips as they were on our Android Authority IG story. But it was during my trip to China that I decided to use log footage as much as possible. You might be hearing this term a lot over the next number of weeks, and log footage is essentially a color profile, or rather a type of video that is shot at a very flat profile. You don't get a whole lot of saturation in it, and also all of the different settings for sharpness, contrast, anything to that effect has been dialed down in order for you to put that in during post-production. I use Premiere Pro for editing video, so you would be using something like the Lumetri colors in order to do general correction and then add some stylized colors or different levels of contrast, maybe mess with the highlights and the shadows in order to get a very stylized look. But for the most part, I just try to recreate the accurate portrayal of the scene when I do color correction. I will say one thing, log footage has a steep learning curve when it comes to getting it just right. And what I will also say is that it's very important to get your settings just right if using the manual video mode when recording the log footage in the LG V30. The LG V30 is good at compensating for changing conditions, but when you're trying to grade log footage, you don't really want the exposure jumping in and out throughout the video, and you obviously don't want to have the white balance changing because that will change your color altogether. But overall, I couldn't really get over just how detailed the videos were. There was a very low level of noise, and I really enjoyed what kind of videos I was able to get out of it. It's just amazing the kind of package you get in the cameras for the LG V30. You're able to do log footage and then stylize the footage yourself in post-processing with color correction, or you can use one of the built-in color profiles to get that stylized look as you are recording. And then, of course, you have the wide-angle camera, which is just simply always fun. And if you've never used a wide-angle camera before, this might be the time to try it out on the LG V30. It is just an incredible amount of fun. So that's going to go ahead and do it for this video. I just wanted to bring you an example of the LG V30 as we move into what could be our main review period when we get our final production units. I had hundreds of clips from my trips to Berlin and China over the last few weeks, so I just wanted to share some of that with you guys and give you an example of what the V30 can do. We're looking forward to getting our final review units, and we're going to bring you that review and final thoughts on the camera when that happens. So remember to stay tuned to Android Authority for that and even more. Drop us some likes on the video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And from there, stay tuned for more about the LG V30 and more, because we are your source for all things Android.